Hi, hello. You decided to listen to this. First off, I apologize. I can't believe you're even giving me the time because if I already know you in real life or if you somehow only know me through the internet, I don't know why you even decided to click this. But hey, congrats. Thank you. I don't really have a name yet, but this is going to be a media diary that I will try to see if I can get this done every 2 weeks. I remember that it was a year or two ago that I tried to list out all the games and movies that I was going to experience throughout the year, just because I already have bad enough memory, so I should probably start making a habit of writing things down. It took me maybe about a month before I forgot about it, and then just decided, you know what, maybe next year. Well, it's currently next year, and I already made at least one New Year's resolution, which was to watch all the Bond movies, and I decided, you know what, let me toss in another one and see if it's something that I actually stick with, unlike almost anything else that I ever make a resolution for. So, starting from there, let's go ahead and get into what I've actually been playing and watching for the last 2 weeks. On the docket is Wonder Woman 1984, Pixar's Soul, The Pathless, a PS5 game, 13 Sentinels, a Weeb game that is on PS4, Nier Gestalt, because I'm replaying it because I'm under the delusion that I am mostly doing this just because I want to be able to get a spoiler cast of this game up whenever the remake comes out. And you know what? I kind of don't want to go cold into that one first. I want to at least get a little bit of practice going in, which is another main reason why I'm doing all this. After that, I've already watched the two prerequisite movies for my Bond resolution, Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace. Then I was getting rid of my 3D TV and realized I hadn't even watched any 3D TVs on it, so I told myself I need to actually maybe use that thing before I get rid of the TV. And the two movies that I had were Titanic 3D and Blade Runner 2049 3D, which I didn't even seek them out. Titanic came with the Blu-ray disc, and Blade Runner 2049 was an international steelbook that I bought that came with a 3D copy, so I said, you know what, I like the movie anyways, I'll keep it. So, let's go ahead and start with Wonder Woman 1984. Magic Granting Rock. I don't know if I really even need to say anything other than that. There was a Magic Granting Rock, which, why? Look, I'm not going to say that I love Wonder Woman 1. I enjoyed it. It was Iron Man 1. It was just Iron Man 1. It was two great acts that you could build an entire universe off of, like they did with Iron Man. And then the third act was basically every single CGI mess of a boss fight that every other superhero movie eventually devolves to, which, you know what? Completely fine. If Iron Man was able to get away with it and they built off $14 billion franchises off of that or even more power to you. That just means that Wonder Woman was a good movie. Because if we consider Iron Man a good movie, there's no way we can say that Wonder Woman 1 was a bad movie. But please tell me why you decided to take Electro from Amazing Spider-Man 2 and tell Kristen Wiig, yes, just do that. Just do that. No, look. Whatever you're thinking of doing, maybe even Jim Carrey as the Riddler. Go ahead and do that. That's completely fine. But if you can try to get Jamie Foxx in Amazing Spider-Man 2, that'd be perfect. It makes me sad just because Kristen Wiig is actually really funny, and this movie doesn't want her to be funny. There's way too many scenes where when I'm watching her that I'm thinking, why is she's not supposed to be funny here. She's supposed to be kind of like, oh, I feel bad for her, but no, she is trying so hard to be serious, but Kristen Wiig is way too funny to be serious. Although you want to know who was the king of this movie, someone who knew what movie they were in, Pedro Pascal. That man as Max Lord was way too entertaining. I get it, he's supposed to be a stand-in for Trump, but honestly, this man is just a stand-in for any 80s real estate tycoon that is just here to make money and not really care. I can't even think about this movie without just thinking, wow, theaters died for this. AMC over here bleeding out on a stake, and it's because of Wonder Woman 1984, and this is the movie. This is the movie that gets to kill theaters. Lovely. Thank you, WB. Well, no. I will not blame WB. I will blame AT&T because WB, they've put out good stuff. Another movie that is on my list, Blade Runner 2049. Warner Brothers took a beating over that movie since that movie bombed hard. $200 million, and I went to go watch it 3 times because I knew that if this movie was gonna bomb, this movie is too good for the masses. I need to try to save this movie as much as I can. From there, I mean, you know what, this will probably get cut out. That's completely fine. Readjusting myself. Great. Some sweatpants fell. I guess I should probably give some context. Because I am trying to do this cheaply before I actually introduce money into this, I don't plan on putting money into this until at least I can consider that I am going to continue doing this consistently. Right now, I am in my closet. I currently have my clothes set up where I have summer clothes and winter clothes separated. I'm in the winter section right now where I'm just in between sweatpants. One of them just fell on my shoulder because I moved a little bit too hard. I have my back to the wall and I'm sitting on my saxophone case, which is probably really depressing because this is the most use I've given it in probably 8 years or so. Warner Brothers. So Wonder Woman 1984. Wow. Remember when Wonder Woman raped that man against his will and then decided, hey, we're going to take this man's body to the Middle East and possibly get them killed at any moment? That was pretty uplifting. Also, why the hell was every guy horny in this movie? Every single dude was hitting on Gal Gadot, which honestly, you know what? Understandable. I'm not going to sit here and say, you know what? Why are you hitting on Gal Gadot? Because I'm not an idiot. It's Gal Gadot. Understood. I can't ever think about this movie positively. It killed the theaters and it's just another DC movie that floundered. Great. You know what? In the list I have, Soul was the very next movie I watched. Both of them released on December 25th, but you know what? I'm gonna jump to Blade Runner 2049. Seen it before, saw it 3 times in theaters. This was during the golden day of MoviePass, and if you guys don't know what MoviePass is, just know that you missed out on one of the greatest deals ever. Some company was completely high. Some executive out there took the largest line of coke ever and said, we're going to allow you to pay $10 a month and you can go watch 1 movie a day for an entire month. $10 a month, 1 movie a day. And I cannot tell you what a golden age of movies that was. I went to go watch so many movies that if I wasn't in this closet right now and if I was recording in my movie theater room, I'd probably go grab all my ticket stubs because I kept them all. I made sure that I was milking MoviePass for everything it got because I knew from the moment they dropped the price, there is absolutely no way this is going to last because they are not going to make money on this. MoviePass's way to try to make money was to strong arm the theaters into giving them a cut of their food that they sell to tell us, hey, if we ban your movie theaters, you're going to lose all these people who are going to want to watch movies. If we say AMC is not allowed to buy MoviePass, these people will not go to MoviePass. And AMC said, we will just wait you out until you're out of money. And you know what happened? MoviePass, dead. AMC, a little more alive at that point, but, you know, at least they're still currently more alive than MoviePass because I can still get on the AMC app. I think MoviePass is probably trying to avoid hitmen that lent them the money because I don't know who would have ever thought to lend MoviePass enough capital to get this started. What was I even talking about? Oh, yeah. Blade Runner 2049. I did not pay Blade Runner 2049 to go see it in theaters 3 times. I let MoviePass handle that. I even took my wife with because you know why? She needs to be educated. Everyone needs to be educated by Blade Runner 2049. We all need to learn that movies can actually be good sometimes, you know? Maybe a little inventive and all that. Am I really going to talk about the movie? You know what? Sure, because while there are some of you who actually know what Kino is, some of you are thinking Blade Runner 2049. What the hell is that? Do I need to watch the 248 before these? That was a horrible joke. Screw it. I'm going to leave it in because I'm just going to leave it. Blade Runner 2049 is just a $200 million art house movie that, you know what? Most people aren't going to like. I'm going to be honest, I kind of get it. I would probably never show my parents Blade Runner 2049. It's almost 3 hours, and while I know that they can sit through Titanic, Blade Runner 2049 is a movie that feels its length and earns it, but this was never going to hit big. Warner Brothers, that's why I'm never going to give them that much shit. I mean, they are smarter than this. If they made Blade Runner 2049, that's never going to be a big hit. The original Blade Runner is a movie that is beloved for what it did, but it's not exactly beloved as a movie in itself. But you know what? If I can get a Blade Runner 2049 once every decade, I'll take 100 Wonder Woman 1984s. If it didn't kill the theaters. Have I even said anything about Blade Runner 2049? Okay. The movie is Ryan Gosling. He is a robot. That's not a spoiler. You find out within the next 15 minutes of the movie that he's a robot. If you see Batista decide to push Ryan Gosling through a wall and the man is still walking, you kind of assume that he's a robot. It is a movie that is trying to find a potential robot-human hybrid that exists. I should probably give a little bit of context because I know most people haven't watched Blade Runner 1, but to summarize that one very quickly, Blade Runner takes place in a world where it is the cyberpunk dystopia that you always think of because it influenced all of them, and it's a world where humans are living alongside androids that basically look very much alike as humans, almost impossible to determine the difference. And it is a movie. The movie itself is about trying to find the robots that are gaining human consciousness. You've heard this story before, but look, Blade Runner was 82, okay? It was one of the first ones that did it. I'll give it some slack. Blade Runner 2049 is following up with that and trying to find the human-robot hybrid that might accidentally cause another robot uprising, because at that point, what is the difference between the two of us? Great movie. If you have an OLED TV, if you have a 4K setup, if you have any sort of theater setup where you want to show it off, Blade Runner 2049 is absolutely one of those movies. Now, I did specifically mention 3D just because that was the main reason I was rewatching it. It's in 3D. If it's 3D in theaters, I'm going to pick the 2D, the IMAX, preferably Dolby Atmos showings. 3D, you're going to have to put a gun to my head to buy a 3D ticket. I'm not going to do that. However, the OLED TV that I bought had 3D. I bought 2 3D glasses for it. I mean, the glasses were maybe a $10 investment, but I'm cheap. If I put $10 into it, I'm going to not just throw that away, if I can afford to do so. Blade Runner 2049 in 3D, along with Titanic 3D, made me realize 3D TVs are way too finicky. I had the old TV raised up with a dead PC. I'm not joking. I just used a metal box of a PC to hold the TV up higher, just so it has a better viewing angle. Now, while I'm pretty sure most of you, if you're listening to at this point, you somehow have seen my theater room, I post enough pictures about it that it's not really that hard to imagine. It's a small room, a row of chairs, then the TV at the front, along with a 7.1 setup. The room is a little small, the chairs are a little close to the TV, but it does kind of help with the immersion because you're not really paying attention to the walls or anything like that, or the window. It is a very good isolation chamber that works as a theater room. However, I lifted up the TV just a little bit because it helps whenever you're reclining. The TV is raised up just enough that if you recline, the TV looks good. However, what I learned with Titanic and Blade Runner 2049 is that my viewing angle is bad for 3D. The TV requires you to be basically dead eye center to have 3D work, or else you will be distracted like me when I was watching these two movies, where the top part of the TV would look like 3D if you had the glasses off. If you were looking at the bottom, oof, okay, you know what? 3D, still a gimmick at the end of the day, but it's an okay gimmick. If 4K discs decided to start coming out with 3D discs along with them, I wouldn't mind, but you know what? My setup is not made for 3D. So I kept getting distracted with the top part and looking like, oh, that's a little ugly. The Titanic is split into two. Oh, look, Harrison Ford's gun is just kind of a little out of frame. Oh, okay, that's a little weird. So even though I was worried about giving up my previous TV since I was sending it back to LG because it had some burn-in issue, I have made my peace with not having 3D. I will still keep those discs because I like having everything complete in box, but I could probably go my entire life without watching those 3D movies again and be completely fine. So at least with that, Blade Runner 2049 in 3D, it's a good movie. Who cares about 3D? Basically. Titanic 3D, who cares? But Titanic, I will say I was impressed that since it was in 3D, it wasn't in widescreen, which was actually really nice. I got to watch Titanic in 4K Dolby Atmos at an AMC probably a year or two ago, because honestly, I don't remember days anymore. Okay, 2020 and 2021, I don't remember what days it is. Okay, if you told me it was February 2014, I might believe you. I'd probably question why I'm in a house. I'd question why I'm not at my parents' house. I'd question why I'm not going to school or why I have a better job now, but I could probably be easily convinced I'm in a different time period. So going on from there, Titanic, got to watch it in theaters. That was awesome, and getting to watch that on a big screen was honestly the right way to watch it. That movie is one of the last few epics that we ever got. Epics is a certain genre where it's meant to be big, grandiose. It's supposed to feel like it's meant for theaters. Now, in 3D, without it being widescreen, and even though it was just a 65-inch TV, I get it. That movie, I've loved it almost this entire time that it's been out. I think I remember watching Titanic when I was 4 or 5. I still know that my dad has the double VHS for Titanic, and I'm pretty sure at this point that's just going to be a mainstay. Titanic is just something that's been around for my entire life, and I still really like it. Every single time I watch it, I'm just impressed by the pacing. I'm impressed by the fact that it's just a simple movie. There's nothing too complicated about it. It's just hitting the right emotions. It's written competently enough. I mean, there are some lines in there where you remember, oh yeah, James Cameron isn't really a writer. He's way more of a better director than he is a writer. But the characters are written well enough that you can connect to them. There's, you know what? Billy Zane. Billy Zane is such a treasure. That man is just oozing with the ability to hate him, and I love him for it. I found myself saying some of the lines along with him. One of my favorites is, you know what? I'm going to put the microphone away from here. You know what? I kind of hope that still sounds good. But one of my favorite times is when Billy Zane finally goes insane, right? I'm bringing it closer because I realize I still need to talk more before I quote. One of my favorite scenes to quote along with is when Billy Zane finally loses it. Rose is about to get put on the boat, and we have the music swell up. We have it's cheesy, but God, I fall for it every single time. The fireworks popping behind Leonardo DiCaprio as she's looking at him. The music makes that scene really work. She realizes, oh man, this is Leonardo DiCaprio. I can't let go of him. And she jumps back on the ship. You have the music swell up. You have Rose and Jack kiss at the bottom of the stairwell. And you have Billy Zane finally lose it. This man grabs the handler's 1911 because... God, 1911s. From there, he starts taking shots at them. He chases them down to the bottom of the stairwell where it's completely flooded. And now I'm going to move the microphone away because I want to say this accurately. Now, what could possibly be so funny? I put the diamond in the coat. And I put the coat on her! Oh my God, I love it. I love that line, and I think it's all to Billy Zane. I just found myself quoting this movie so many times, and you know what? I probably credited it to my dad. My dad quotes so many of these random movies that he loves, and I think it rubbed off on me. It's one of those things that you realize as you get older, you just start becoming your parents. Which, you know what? Thank God. I like my parents. They're awesome. I don't mind becoming like them. Titanic. I get why some people hate it. though. Is it really doing anything spectacularly? I would honestly say that the CG, the special effect, all of that, it's done spectacularly. It took until we got into HD and for 4K for us to start noticing, oh, you know what? It really is just rubber people that are walking around on a ship whenever they pull out and show most of the ship. But you know what? It still looks pretty good because they're doing the same thing they did with Jurassic Park. Now, Jurassic Park, if you watch that still looks really good because I think I remember reading that some of the philosophy behind Jurassic Park was that they wanted to keep switching the methods of how the dinosaurs look so your eyes would never get used to what you're looking at and it could get away with looking a little iffy. The scene with the raptors chasing the kids, it opens up with, if you look in isolation, raptors that look horrible in CG, but then it quickly switches to dudes wearing rubber suits of raptors. And it looks good because your eye gets tricked going back and forth between the bad CGI and the rubber suits. You don't have enough time to focus that it's bad. Whenever Titanic has those rubber people, it's usually a dark scene that hides that the CGI looks bad, or your eyes are focused on something else, so the CGI isn't exactly up in your face like Thanos would be in Infinity War. It's more of the CG is there in the background to make sure that there's actual texture, while you're probably paying attention to the smoke plumes that are coming out of the Titanic. I am always impressed with Titanic, and I don't think that's going to change as time goes on. The only thing I'm willing to throw under the bus for Titanic is Celine Dion. That's pretty much it. I hate that song. It infuriates me because I actually really like the score to Titanic. I think James Horner does a great job. Every single emotional beat that hits, it hits. Every single time that it needs to get epic, it does. Every single time that the water finally breaks in through the glass dome and the music starts hitting, oh man, I cannot tell you how many times I just turn up the volume. Every single time that scene hits, I love it. It's, at this point, it just feels weird talking about Titanic. It's over 20 years old. It's almost as old as I am, but Titanic gets a bad rap. Titanic gets a bad rap, and you know what? Even though James Cameron is out there making Avatar 2 through 27, and it's going to be owned by Disney now, this man released Titanic, the highest grossing movie of all time, and then he said, hold my beer, watch me do it again, and he released Avatar. I don't think Avatar is that good of a movie. I just think Avatar is lesser Titanic. What do I mean by that? Titanic does everything great. It hits every note that it does, and it lands every mark, and it's great. Not many movies can say that they're consistently great across the board. There are a couple of movies where they go, oh, well, you kind of faltered here, but that's not a problem. Most movies can have a failing or two and still be enjoyable products. But Titanic is one of those movies that just hits every single beat. It is the example of a 4-quadrant movie. You could be anyone and the movie will please you. If we're just going to split it down, if you are more of the sentimental type, the first half will get you in. Rose and Jack, those two characters are good characters. You buy their chemistry. And by that point, if you're locked into the characters, then the second half, your entire time, you're biting your nails hoping that they'll actually make it through. Of course, I'm saying this from a standpoint of if you've never watched the movie and have never heard of it, and if you don't realize that the movie got to over $2 billion and everyone else haven't spoiled it to death and already talked about the door being big enough for both of them, which by the way, you know what? I don't care what Mythbusters said. At least James Cameron, within the movie itself, tried to say that the door would not work. It's a very small beat. Jack is trying to get Rose on the door, and he tries to then get on, and the door flips over. And just letting both of them know, okay, you know what? The door is not going to be able to work for both of us. I will consider the point that, why didn't they switch sides? You know what? Fair point, but I mean, the entire movie is basically Jack simping for Rose. So if I don't think he had it in him to rotate back and forth. I myself don't exactly like asking for help, so I probably would have frozen to death too, just because I'd be like, you know what, I can stand this a little bit more. I'll ask for help once it's too late. So I know for sure I would have frozen my ass off too. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. So at the end of the day, Titanic, still really good. Still really love the movie. I'd have to stop and think if it's in my top 10, just because I, for some reason, don't really rank my movies. I know what my favorite movie is, Whiplash. Like, I know that's that, but I've never stopped to think of a list. If there's one thing I've learned, at least from Avatar and Titanic, never bet against James Cameron. This man made a sequel to Aliens, and it worked. This man made Terminator 2. He made Titanic. He made Avatar. I'm not going to say Avatar's a good movie, but, you know, it's kind of hard to argue against numbers. Avatar 2, 3, 4, 79. I will give it a shot. The man has earned his spot. From here, I think I'm going to segue into the Bond movies, Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace. So, I did mention at the top that I made a resolution to watch all the Bond movies, but you would have thought that I would have started with Sean Connery. Yeah, that makes sense. However, I decided to let myself be easily influenced by YouTube, specifically a channel called Cinefix. Now, if you haven't heard of Cinefix, they ask themselves the bold question, what if Watch Mojo but good? Now, I may be distilling them a little too hard like that, but Cinefix's top 10 lists are some of the best top 10 lists that I've seen. I personally haven't delved too deeply into the top 10 lists of YouTube because honestly, that's too much of a mess. I don't want to hear that many top 10 lists, but Cinefix does have the creds behind them and they are ridiculous cinephiles. So if they put out a video, I'm going to listen to it. The video that they released last year was one that they tried to plot out a timeline for Bond, tying in every single different Bond. They made the biggest argument that the Daniel Craig movies, that the gap between Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace to Skyfall kind of doesn't make sense. You have Bond in Casino Royale as barely just becoming a 00 agent. You have Quantum of Solace picking up almost like 5 minutes after Casino Royale. But then you go to Skyfall and they make Daniel Craig look considerably older and they refer to him as being old the entire time. And while I still contend that Casino Royale, Quantum of Solace, and Skyfall can be watched as a trilogy, they're not wrong. I mean, Bond goes from what you would think is like a young buck in Casino Royale to, oh man, the game's getting too old for you. Like, I get what the complaint is. So what they did is that they plotted out a timeline that fills in almost every other Bond movie in between Quantum of Solace and Skyfall. So I want to say that it's about 24 Bond movies. I could just look this up because I am double fisting phones. I am holding my old LG V20 in my right hand and I'm holding my S10e in my left hand as it records. I could look this up. I'm not going to. You know what? 24. We're just going to go for 24. Now, I've already knocked out the prerequisite 2 movies for this month, which were Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace. Casino Royale, still a damn good movie. I feel like I'm starting to get to a point where I'm getting diminishing returns though. The first 2 acts, up until Bond asks Le Chiffre to scratch his balls by hitting them ridiculously hard. Everything before that is just pure goodness. It is what you want in a reboot. But I've started getting to the point where the 3rd act, I'm a little bit more on my phone than anything else. I'm not gonna say it's bad. It's just that I've watched it enough times where I don't really need to see Vesper and Bond in love. Like, I get it. I've seen it. The first 2 acts, though, are just still solid action. I mean, the opening of the parkour scene, that is just good stuff. That is good character writing. One of the producers for Bond had said that the delay between Pierce Brosnan and Daniel Craig, they said that the main reason that they had that delay was because Austin Powers nailed Bond so badly that they had to then change up what they were doing. Hence why Daniel Craig is so much of a different flavor from Pierce Brosnan. And that parkour scene is exactly a good example of that. You have this parkour guy that is just running through this obstacle course of a construction site, and you have Bond just completely brooding his way through. This parkour man over here jumps through the tiniest gap at the top of a dry wall, and Bond comes in and Kool-Aid mans through it. That is one of the best character writing through actions that I can think of, at least off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure if I start thinking, I can think of better ones, but that is such a good character trait. This man is a renegade and much more pushback than the Pierce Brosnan Bond. Now, Casino Royale, I for some reason feel like I have less to say about it. It's just a good movie. Titanic, I can talk more about 1997's Titanic than I can about Casino Royale in 2006. I guess one shout out that I always enjoy, I love that Blu-ray discs were relatively new during that time, but I love seeing that whenever Bond goes into the hotel in, I want to say, the Bahamas. I love that the hotel there is recording all their footage on Blu-ray because Sony produced the movie. It was 2005. Sony's like, we need to push this out. Plus the fact that I think Casino Royale was one of the first movies that specifically went Blu-ray over HD DVD. Look, I could talk about HD DVD. I could talk about Blu-ray. I'm already hitting at least 35 minutes so far with this raw file before I start cutting things out. So, you know what? No. Casino Royale, good movie. Quantum of Solace. Quantum of Solace is one of the few movies that I can remember where I was thinking, man, if you just had a better director, this could work. Quantum of Solace is one of those few movies that whenever I watch, I get headaches from. The movie just doesn't feel like it remembers to have establishing shots. The very opening of the movie has Bond running away from nameless henchmen, which, you know what? Whenever I watch it, I get excited. I look at it, it's very tastefully done. I like the way that it starts off. You have the shadows kind of beaming across the Aston Martin as he's driving. You kind of don't really get what's going on at the beginning, but that's fine. It's got style to it. It pulls out and you see that they're driving through a tunnel, and I still think that's pretty good, but it's only after when it feels like we start getting quick cuts and we don't understand the geography of anything. The way the camera moves makes me think that they would be moving east to west, but the cars are moving west to east. So by the time that we get to see the cars actually moving, I'm already trying to figure out in my head, why did you shoot it like this? You're moving in the opposite vector that the cars are moving, and it's just going to confuse people, whether if they know it or not. One of my favorite lines that Red Letter Media ever did with their reviews about the prequels was a line where they go, "You may not have noticed it, but your brain did." And Quantum of Solace feels like that movie, where it feels like even if you don't realize something is wrong specifically, you're always completely off on that movie. It just makes me sad because Quantum of Solace is a cool idea. You have Bond become the hardened bastard that he's supposed to become at the end of Casino Royale. And then you have Quantum of Solace with him struggling to actually be able to become that cold and hardened bastard. It's a revenge story for Bond, a man who does not fall in love. It's a very good premise, but it just makes me sad that it's directed either poorly or boringly. The opera scene is infuriating to me because I really like what they're going for. The whole intercutting between Bond running away and the opera going on, I really like it, but I just kind of wish I knew what was going on during it. I just see Bond running away, he punches a couple of people, there's two plays going on where someone's getting executed while there's also an opera going. I have no idea what's going on. I don't know what's going on. I just know that Bond puts a gun to someone's head and then I don't even remember, I think just drops him on a car. I watched this movie within the last 2 weeks and I can't even really tell you what happened because some of the stuff just feels boring. Whenever Bond is meeting with Mathis, a character that he assumed betrayed him in the first movie, which he then realized in Quantum of Solace that he was clean, that scene where he just throws away his body and Bond is trying to hide the fact that he did have a connection to him, that's some good stuff. Daniel Craig was trying. It just is a shame that it was probably the writer's strike that I assume messed this movie up. I don't know. It was in the right year for it, but even at the end of the day, I still feel like I lay the blame at the director's feet because there's way too many scenes in this movie where I keep thinking, why is this boring? This is a really cool concept. Oh, Disney's over here remaking The Lion King, a movie that is such a banger that you cannot touch, but there are movies like Quantum of Solace or butterfly effect, where if you took a remake to it, a very interesting concept, and then decided to take it seriously, you have a good movie there. But no, we got this Quantum of Solace. And while I try to look through the flaws, I know there's a good movie underneath. The problem is that there's way too much shit on top of it where I can't. Continuing on from there, the last movie that I have on here is Soul. Man, I kind of wish I would have watched Soul before Wonder Woman. Both of them came out on Christmas, and you know what? Soul, now that I've sat on it for a little bit, I would have to watch WALL-E again to see where I stand, but WALL-E is my favorite Pixar movie. There's just something about you know what? No, I'm gonna stop. If I ever watch WALL-E again, I will talk about it. But moving on to Soul. Soul works really well for me. There's something about existential crises that really work for me. If you know me, I'm pretty sure at some point I've said that Nier Automata is my favorite video game ever. And I can tell you right now, that movie has existential crisis written on the disc, I swear. So it's just a genre I relate to. Well, if I say relate, now I sound crazy, but hey, if you're listening to this, you already know I'm crazy, so screw it, whatever. Soul being the existential crisis that it is, I love it. I love the idea of this man who is focused so much on the one thing that will give his life meaning that he forgets to realize that every little thing gives us meaning to live. I love it. I feel like I could go deeper into it, but you know what? I just watch it. This is, out of all the movies that I have on here, I've got Wonder Woman 1984, Soul, Casino Royale, Quantum of Solace, Titanic, Blade Runner 2049. Because everyone and their mother and their grandmother has watched Titanic, and James Cameron has made so much money off of it that he could fuck off and build Atlantis underneath the ocean, I really don't feel like I need to recommend Titanic. But out of all the movies that I have on here, Soul is the one where if I for some reason started a segment where it's like, here's my recommendation from what I did, Soul would probably be that movie. There's something about it that just feels great. So somehow, ironically, the movie that I like the most out of the movies I've watched over the last 2 weeks is somehow the one I speak the least about, because it's just one to watch. I mean, Disney Plus, you were going to watch The Mandalorian anyways. Just in between episodes, just go watch Soul. It's good. So now I'm going to throw all credibility and start talking about video games. So the three that I have here are the Pathless, 13 Sentinels, and Nier Gestalt. Now, Nier Gestalt is one that is going to be reoccurring this entire time, if I actually keep up with this. The Pathless and 13 Sentinels. Now, the problem is that these two games I haven't played in since probably the beginning of the year, but I will still talk about them with whatever little I've played. We'll go ahead and start with the Pathless. The Pathless is a game that came out on PS4 and PS5. I got it because, honestly, I'm a sucker for music. I will pull myself almost through anything, just even really bad media, if the music is banging. I played the entire Kingdom Hearts series and hated most of them because the composer Yoko Shimomura is so good. This woman convinced me to push myself through almost 100 hours of games I really don't care about because her songs are always banging. Final Fantasy 15 isn't even that good of a game, but her soundtrack kicks so much ass that I played through the entire thing and actually have positive thoughts about that. So, the Pathless. The Pathless is basically a blender game if you tossed in Journey, Shadow of the Colossus, and Breath of the Wild, which all three of those games really like. Breath of the Wild, not exactly on my favorites list, but I really enjoyed my time with it. Journey at some point was my favorite game of all time, and Shadow of the Colossus is absolutely in that list. Now, the Pathless is about you are the traveler. I don't even remember the name of it. You are a nameless protagonist. You must free this area that has been taken over by, I can't remember the name. I'm actually going to pause it and pick right back up. I decided to look it up because I didn't want to just guess at this one. The Godslayer. The Godslayer is the villain of the game. You are in this land where there are 4 divine beasts. Come on, let's be honest. They just ripped that straight from Breath of the Wild. It's 4 divine beasts. And the Godslayer has taken them over. You must go and liberate them. You know what? I don't really think the story itself is anything too great. It's just really enjoyable backdrop to then get a whole bunch of the little stories that you find throughout the game. There are a couple of orbs that you can go. You can basically hear whatever the spirit of that dead person had thought during that process. It's enjoyable. I'm not going to say, it's groundbreaking or anything like that, but it's just good stuff. I've mostly been enjoying the music more than anything else, which is why I mentioned Yoko Shimomura earlier. The composer for the Pathless is Austin Wintory, and he has composed a whole bunch of other games, but specifically one near and dear to me, Journey. And this game has Journey written all over it if it was mixed in with a little bit of, you know what, I don't even feel like I'm that educated about music. I want to say some sort of Mandarin vocal chanting. I don't know. But regardless, the music hits. I enjoy the fluidity of the game. It is very focused on speed, and while it may come off really simple just because you're just holding down L2 and occasionally hitting R2, it still works. I don't really think this needs to be a very complicated game where I'm trying to pull off Devil May Cry moves. It's completely fine for what it needs to be. The puzzles are really fun. I'm not going to say that this is a great game, but it's on the PS5, and this is a dead zone for games right now. The Pathless is just a really good game. I haven't gotten to the end of it. I want to say I have probably a quarter of the game left, but every single time I play it, there are many times where I don't feel like playing it, and I'll just tell myself, no, come on, just play it. You can get this knocked out, you can go put it in your collection and just call it a day. But every time I play it, I get sucked back in. I enjoy my time with it, and you know what? I can't say anything negative about it. Maybe the ending will change my mind to be able to praise this game harder, but where it is, I'm enjoying myself. So from there, this is just going to be a pattern. When it gets to the game section, I'm just giving my thoughts in process. Rarely will I be able to actually beat a game and talk about my full feelings about it, so that's just what I'm going to have to do. The next game up is 13 Sentinels, which is the least amount of time I've put in a game so far, at least across the 3 that I've been playing. 13 Sentinels is so far just a visual novel, real-time strategy. Of course, just real-time strategy is just think turn-based, but has a little bit of a timer section to it. Turn-based, what is that? Think Pokemon. That's as simple as I can give it to you. 13 Sentinels so far. I don't mind spoiling this just because the game itself is so vague that you need to be given at least some sort of hook of why you want to be interested. 13 Sentinels is a game that I assume focuses on 13 characters, and it shifts between different time periods. There is 1944, 1984. I don't even know if it's 1964, and I might be imagining that. I know for sure there's 2064. It jumps across so many time periods across disparate characters that you see interacting together in media res, and it's enough to make me want to keep going. I've heard enough people compare 13 Sentinels to Nier, my favorite game, and the thing that always comes up is that this is a story that could only be told in games, and anytime that you use the media of games specifically to tell stories, not just The Last of Us or Uncharted where it's a movie you can play, but a story specifically made for a game, that is where I immediately get interested. So 13 Sentinels, I can't really say anything else. It has time travel. It's got these weeb-ass characters, but you know what? It's fine. I can play anime. I will not watch anime. Now, speaking of weeb-ass games, Nier Gestalt. Now, here's the thing. What the hell is Gestalt? There is another game called Nier Replicant. There's Nier Automata. You're insane. Why are you talking about this? To answer that question, Nier Gestalt is the original release on PS3 and Xbox 360 from 2010. Now, why am I calling it Gestalt? Because I need to be able to differentiate them. I will call the original release Gestalt. I will call Nier Automata just Automata, and I will call Nier Replicant the new one that is coming out in April, which I will already contend that it is Game of the Year. I will not stop on that. So, out of all the games that I've been playing, Nier Gestalt on the PS3 is the one I've been playing the most. Now, I can tell you right now, oh man, I'm not having fun. I love the music for this game. The composer, Keiichi Okabe, man's a master at what he does. The man makes gold. All right, I bought Drakengard 3, so I'm about to get real in depth here. Drakengard is the original series that Nier started off from. I'm going to try and keep it simple because if not, I will get into way too much minutia. Drakengard 1 is a game that came out on the PS2. I don't even know what year it is, because I just know it as a game. There is a joke ending where this game that takes place in basically kind of a dark fantasy, high fantasy universe gets teleported into modern day Tokyo where they fight a god. I can't explain more. I can't get into more minutia. But basically, this joke ending, the god dies and it creates a virus for all intents and purposes to infect all of humanity. And Nier Gestalt basically is a spin-off from Drakengard off of a joke ending. And it opens up with you having to deal with your daughter being sick from what that god spread. My love for Automata is what had me actually go revisit Nier Gestalt. I beat this game for the first time. It's 2021. I have to remind myself that every time. I beat this game 2 years ago. I broke out the PS3 for that. Yeah, I know. And I played it the exact way I did Automata. Automata, I recommend always just playing through the main storyline. Just play through the main storyline. The side quests are better whenever you have beaten the game straight through. By that point, you have extra context for what goes on in the story. So then all of the side quests that you do just tend to improve that experience that you had originally. I actually didn't know that I was going to do the same thing for Nier Gestalt. I beat the game in 2019. I really just did the main line. I didn't really mess with too many of the side quests. I beat it, and from there, now starting this year, because Nier Replicant is coming out in April, of course, Nier Replicant is a remake of Nier Gestalt. I could explain more. No, I'm not going to do that. Once I do the specific episode about Nier, I will endlessly talk about that. But for now, we're not trying to do that. And I feel like my love for the series gives me a good chance to be able to basically be able to tell, oh, okay, Replicant changed this from Gestalt. Gestalt did this better than Replicant. I'm honestly expecting that Replicant is going to be very good. It is going to be better than Gestalt, but it is going to disappoint anyone who's only played Automata because it is not better than Automata. But going from there, I am playing Nier Gestalt almost the exact same way I did Automata. Beat it one time just straight through, and then the second playthrough is where I go and I will try to 100% all of the side quests, which, they're bad. Oh man, they're bad. I feel like I'm wasting so much time, but I told myself I'm going to do it. Damn it. I've been taking notes as I play it, and I can tell you right now, almost all the side quests from the first half of the game are almost throwaway. They are literally just fetch quests or hoping that the random number generator will give you the right item that you need to be able to deliver. I can't stand most of the side quests, but the main reason I did them in Automata as well as here is that the character writing is still pretty good. Look, this is just going to become a recurring thing if I continue recording these things. I will always prioritize characters over story. If a character is good, you just want to follow them and see what they're doing, even if the story itself falls apart. You could have the most complicated story that has all the right twists and turns to never make you guess what is going to happen next. But if the characters are people you don't care about, then why are you even watching? Because at that point, you could have just read an article about it. And the main reason I mentioned this is because the side quests in Gestalt and Automata, both of them just have fun character interactions. The main character, who you can name whatever you want, but listen, the default name is Nier. His name is Nier. The interactions between Nier and Grimoire Weiss, which, truth be told, look, he's a floating talking book. There's more to it, but like I said, I'm going to focus on that instead whenever I'm specifically talking about Nier. But anyways, Nier himself, he's a bit stoic, he is a bit more caring about people. Grimoire Vice is a floating book with the personality of the snootiest butler you can ever think of, and basically Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy levels of I don't understand humans. And whenever these two people basically talk, that interplay between them is just really good. Even though Grimoire Vice is kind of unaware of how humans work, he still does care. So between the two of them, they still have shared values, which is where the interesting stuff happens between them. So even though what you're doing in the side quests are pretty bad, the character interactions of each little action that you do is pretty nice. I would never recommend anyone do the side quests unless they just really like these characters. And I really like the characters, so I'm going to play through it. But if you can find a YouTube playthrough of everyone who does the side quests, like, that's probably the better option and a better use of your time. But hey, I'm committing to actually playing it, so I'm going to stick through it. And from there, I guess I can go into the plot a little bit. So of course I mentioned that God who created basically coronavirus that infects Japan. It opens up where you are Nier in Japan, 2049. It is summer and it is snowing. However, it's not snow, it's the coronavirus, yay! Look, I'm just gonna call it coronavirus because it's easier. I could call it white chlorination syndrome. I'm just gonna call it coronavirus. So you are Nier in Japan, 2049, trying to fight the Shades, the main enemies of the game that you don't really know what they are yet, protecting your daughter named Yona, who got infected by the snow coronavirus that is attacking her. You get to do the usual video game thing that thankfully isn't a trope that much anymore, which is you get to be fully powered up with all the power-ups that you're going to get throughout the game to kind of get a feel for what's going on. After that process, you have a floating book that looks a little bit like Grimoire Vice, but isn't. There's an explanation for that later, but you know, that's for later. Nier tells his daughter, do not touch that book. Do not touch that book. It will give you snow coronavirus. Do not touch it. You go, you do your combat thing, you kill a boss, and you come back, you get a cutscene, and you realize that she got the snow coronavirus from touching the book. Of course, I really like the intro. At some point, I'm just going to end up repeating myself because the music, characters, these are the things I care about. The song Snow in Summer is such a good haunting song that immediately just tells you what you're going to be going through. It's not going to be something pleasant, which honestly most of the game, it's very good at lulling you into thinking that it's just going to be another high fantasy story, but then later on things really start falling into place and going like, oh wow, this is darker than the cover would have led me think. But from there, I just really enjoy the opening. I mean, Nier is exactly who he is. He's going to be the dude who will do whatever he needs to do for his daughter. And Yona basically does everything she can to not become an annoying kid like almost every other video game. I mean, come on, Skyrim exists and there are mods to specifically kill the children because they're annoying. So it's always nice to see a child in a video game that you immediately don't want to start wrangling or downloading mods to murder. From there, after Yona contracts the snow coronavirus, it jumps over to almost 3,000 years later, and you are in control of Nier, who looks exactly like the dude you were just playing, except 3,000 years later, who has the exact same daughter, Yona. They look exactly alike, except now it's 3,000 years later, so you're already starting off with a whole bunch of questions. It's a good setup. It's a good setup. You're left confused. I would still say it's probably a problem that it leaves you just too confused, where some people will go, how is this even going to have a valid answer? Screw it. I might just stop. I get it, but no joke, the music just pulls me through. I don't even think this is that good of a game. Like, it's not on my favorites list. I could honestly put it there in its own category, which would be honorable mentions. I cannot recommend. It's very difficult to recommend Nier Gestalt just straight off the bat unless you have an undying love for Automata. But from there, I mean, the game is split into two halves. The first half is just a whole bunch of table setting. You go and you start learning about the characters who are going to come into play in the second half and the areas that you're going to be visiting during all of this. Probably one of my favorite things about all of this is that you can see a whole bunch of the DNA from Automata that came from Gestalt. There's a whole bunch of game shifts that happen. Sometimes you're playing a third-person action, sometimes you're going to be playing a bullet hell, sometimes you're going to be playing even a text adventure. The director, Yoko Taro, is always talking about how he's annoyed with games that if you play for about an hour or a different time, I don't know. If you play for about an hour, you kind of understand what you're going to be doing for the next 20 to 30 hours, and he's not wrong. So that's one of his design philosophies, that he constantly wants it to change up as he's playing. And that also seeps into the story. He doesn't ever want you to have your bearings for too long. The first half of the game is all about getting your bearings, and then the second half is all about twisting and turning them, which is exactly what Automata does. Automata spends about 2/5 of it to table set before it all starts crashing down, and I think it's worth it. Nier Gestalt takes a little bit longer, and it's probably not as worth it unless you can get pulled through with music and characters and some story, but it's really hard for me to recommend. I'm replaying it, I'm enjoying myself. It's hard to recommend it when we have PS4s and PS5s out here. It's really hard for me to be like, go find this game that's still holding value for $30 and pull out the PS3. Like, I can't go that far. What I can recommend is the soundtrack. You could find the soundtrack on Spotify, and that shit bangs. I love the music for that game. I actually even went to Chicago at the beginning of 2020 to go see them live in concert in Chicago. I love the music, and it honestly is what gets me through almost all the bad stuff in this game. I love it. And with that is pretty much it. That's all the media I've had over the last 2 weeks. Going forward, I think I know for sure I'm going to watch probably another Bond movie. I want to see if I can catch up ahead. I want to watch Heat and Collateral again. I'm probably going to keep playing Nier. Pathless, I'm very close to finishing, so thankfully there's still other stuff to watch and play. If you got this far, wow, okay. I mean, I'm going to try and cut this down as much as I can. So far, I'm hitting an hour 5, but I'm sorry that you don't have enough entertainment, that you somehow defaulted to me. So, sorry and thank you. We'll see if this is a one-off or how long I stick with it, but from here, thank you. And I'll think of some way to say bye later.